This morning, Meredith Myoun McIntosh is going to speak with us on the art and patience of practice. She brings the practice of zazen to a lifetime of music training and performance, and also over 40 years of interest in body-mind awareness. Since 1988, she's been a student of the late Tangen Harada Roshi of Bukkokuji in Obama, Japan. And she traveled there several times for extended practice. With the fabric of zazen underlying all aspects of her life, Meredith finds it profoundly helpful to study, practice, and teach the principles common to the Alexander technique and the dharma. Alexander technique principles can be applied to zazen, the round of daily life, and responding to our lives on the two-dimensional screen. I'll turn it over to Meredith.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many faces. If you have a burning question at any time, you're welcome to unmute yourself. And I think there's a way to raise hands, but I'm sort of not real virtual facile, so it might be better just to actually raise your hand. So I wanted to begin with just saying that this idea of Alexander technique and zazen practice is a lot of the things I'm going to say are not new, because I think there are a lot of parallels between Zen practice and Alexander technique. So excuse me, I'm distracted because someone's leaving a message on my other phone. So as you listen and as we go through some of the guided things that we're doing, the beginning of this Alexander element that we're adding today is to sense use your kinesthetic sense, which is the internal sense of your body, to include that as we're doing whatever it is that we're doing. And today we'll have some guided movements, but this is really just kind of an example for this talk, in order to have you recognize that whatever you're doing, you are moving. Even in zazen, you've chosen not to move spatially, but you still have your breath, your blood, your lymph, all these things that are moving. And I also like to remind people in zazen that even though we're not moving spatially in a big way, we're actually movable. We've just decided to not move. That doesn't mean we've decided to not move and hold ourselves there. The thing that gets extra and kind of gets in our way and makes for some difficulties is when we are trying to be good meditators or to be a good whatever. And so that trying gives us a sense of, oh, this is bad, this posture is bad. So I'm gonna not do that, I'm going to do this. And set yourself in some way. So just start to incorporate the idea that as you're sitting there right now, listening to me, you can sense how you are doing that. What are you sitting on? I don't see everyone from the chest down, so I'm just trusting you to just sense what is contacting the ground. What is your ground now? It's probably part of your sit bones. Maybe if you're cross-legged, it would be knees also on the floor. If you're in a chair, it would be sit bones and your feet on the ground. So just start to dial in how you are doing what you're doing right now, which is sitting, listening. And when you start to add that kinesthetic sense, you want to add it. So you want to add it into maybe the sense of the room, that you have space above you and space behind you, to your sides, to diagonals, just in the room where you are. That's part of sensing the present moment. So sometimes when and I'm talking about myself here now, sometimes when I am kind of studying something, oh, how do my feet you know, I might narrow my thinking into, it looks like there's a chat here. I guess there's no message. Okay. So sometimes when I'm really, you know, thinking, oh, where's my top joint? Or, and we'll get to some of that too. Where are my feet? I might narrow my view in trying to think about that. But what I hope for myself is that I can sense my feet on the ground all the way up from my whole body and from the whole room. So we're not giving up thing to include something else. So since we've been sitting for a little while, I would like to have you, with some of these things I've just already thrown out, get up and take a walk around the room and see just what a little bit of added awareness of how you're doing, what you're doing while you're doing it can change your experience. And just like kind of a circle around the room and then come back down and sit. So usually if I'm in person in a situation like this, I would ask around, what did you experience? But for today, I think that if you have a paper and pencil and you want to write down something, you know, that came up, I'll try to leave a little bit of time, maybe 10 minutes at the end, but our time is short. So I think we'll do it that way, unless it's a real, you really like, then you're welcome to. So just sensing, what did you notice differently to, because you were paying attention to your kinesthetics sense of walking around the room. And then when you came back, was the task over for you? Did you say, oh, okay, I did that, and forget to notice how you sat back down on the chair? That's a possibility too. So we kind of compartmentalize sometimes, and the point of this zazen, of our Zen practice, is that every moment is part of that practice. And so it is with the addition of the kinesthetic sense, and in this case, by way of Alexander technique ideas. So we're experiencing more and more as we establish these practices and habits of really being, you know, one thing is maybe kind of finished, but when the bell rings this morning to finish this session, it's actually just going on into the next thing that you're doing. So I hope that you can carry some of this through for some of the day, and then it might come up in other places as well. I wanted to let's see how, I guess I need to, a little bit of a timer. Anne, would you be willing to give me a 15 minute time
Okay,
announcement? Thank you.
I will.
So one of the basic things in looking at our kinesthetic self and sensing the truth of how we are organized and put together, just wanted to go a little bit into a quick basic anatomy lesson. And let's see, I have my friendly skeleton, which I will bring the camera over to. That. So we've got our skull, and coming over here, our spine. And if you look at the spine as I come down the spine, is the lighting okay? It's okay. Okay. And down to the base of our spine, you'll see how thick the spine is from the back bumps, that when you feel on your back, you feel these bumps. But the spine, the bulk of the spine is in the front and in the middle of our torso. So, and that's where all the discs are. So that's where our weight is meant to be taken, not so much back on the bumpy parts. That's where the nerves come out. And so if you think a little bit more forward, as the bulky stabilizing part of your spine, that's going to maybe shift your organization. And then very importantly, if I open the jaw, see, I don't know whether you can see it. Can you see the vertebra behind the teeth? And yeah. So if you took your tongue out and the muscles in your neck and throat, you would see your spine, the top part of your spine coming all the way up here. So let's all do this. I want you to put your fingers right in front of your little ear flap, because that's about the height of where your jaw drops away from your skull. So I'd like you to drop your jaw away from your skull, and can you feel that indentation under your fingers? That's your jaw dropping away from your skull. That's how high the spine comes up, all the way up to there. So if we're thinking in zazen about having an upright spine, as you've heard before, and then maybe the slight tilt and to look at the 45-degree angle as we're sitting, let's think about having that come from way up here. Because a lot of times what happens is when we say, okay, we're sitting, we're nice and upright. Now I'm going to look down 45 degrees. You see the difference. So if I'm going to both use my eyes, we can also roll our eyes in our sockets and then use this slight bubble of our skull on top of our spine. We actually get to that 45-degree angle quite easily without compromising any length in our spines. So if you write anything down, just write top joint. And if you're curious a little bit and kind of forget, or sometimes it's just good to remind yourself, check it out on an anatomy site online. But your ear flaps are a good indicator of where the top of your spine is. So the other aspect that comes into lots of things that we do in zazen and also our lives is how our arms relate to our torsos. And so I'd like to do a little arm etude. I call it an etude. You can do this sitting if you don't have arms on your chair, but I'm going to stand for this. And so if you'd like to stand, that I think it would probably be a nice thing to change anyway. But sitting is completely fine. So this little etude begins with sensing your feet on the ground, sensing your legs coming right from your arches and your lower leg bones, and then your upper leg bones into your pelvis. And just check a little bit whether you're way behind or way forward of where you sense those bones in your legs coming into your pelvis. There's a lot of times as I was talking about the spine, we tend to lean back a little bit, and that's on the back part of the spine. And we want to think about bringing our weight up onto the front of our spine. And then the spine coming all the way up, and start picturing it coming all the way up through your neck, through behind your mouth, and way up to right behind your nose. That's your spine. So we're standing here thinking of our top joint, our skull on top of our spine, space above, space behind, space to the side. Great. And so that's our starting place. We just always want to renew some of those thoughts so that we're starting from a nice, easy, organized system. And then with the arms, we're going to add on top of that nice organization, we're going to start turning our thumbs toward the outside, which is turning the lower part of our arms to what we call an external rotation. And then our fingertips are going to lead, and we're going to think about, like, maybe we're inside of a big barrel, like a wine cask barrel. And so we're bringing our arms up, leading with our fingertips, but through a big arch. And still thinking of feet on the ground, our arms coming from our back width and arching up to the top of the barrel. And let's just practice going down that same route just to get that width and widening and lengthening in the arms. Yeah. So I'm just adding that little extra step right now just for practice. And now we're going to, again, leading with the fingers out over that big side arches, up to the top of the barrel, externally rotating our whole arm, even up in the socket. Great. And as we come down this time, we're going to continue that external rotation all the way up in here so that our elbows are kind of leading down and a little bit forward to keep that external rotation. Yes, looks good, everyone, that I can see. Now here's the part we want to really pay attention to. We've gotten this nice width from that. Can you sense that? So as we bring our elbows toward our torso, we don't have to bring them all the way in because we want to leave room for bringing our forearms down, draping down from the upper arm without losing this width and openness that we have both in the back and the front. So we're bringing it down and then bringing our palms toward our thighs or toward the outside of our thighs. Yeah. Let's do the whole thing again. And I'll add a few other thoughts. And I want you to just notice how we can stay open, upright, and still be, having our arms draped gently at our sides. All right, here we go with our thumbs rotating, letting the lower arms follow that. Coming up into the barrel, letting our upper arms also come into external rotation. The elbows, the inside of the elbows are facing to the ceiling. Arching, big arch, yes. Thinking of our feet on the ground, our back big and wide, even while our arms are coming up. Draping our elbows on down, continuing that external rotation, soft fingers, soft elbows, and then coming down by your sides. Great. One more thing we're going to add on, and I'm going to demonstrate this. Well, two more things. When we're coming down here, we're actually going to think up in the armpit so that the length between your hips and your armpits stays nice and lengthened in here, so that when we're not bringing our arms down, we're also, shortening here. So you want to think draping elbows down, but inside of the armpit going up, the humerus, this is called the humerus, that upper arm bone is going to feel like it goes up as your elbows come down, because that's letting that length of the torso stay with you. And then the other thing is that this time when we bring our arms down, we're just going to come into our zazen mudra. Here we go. Thumbs, feet on the ground, top joint, breathing. Inside of the barrel, lengthened, easy fingers, external rotation, big barrel, draping elbows with the top of the upper bone coming up into the armpit. Yes. And draping down. And then just right about here, because we're going to need some width here, we're going to just bring our forearms in, still allowing those upper arms nice external rotation. Yes, great. All right, so let's sit back down and just if you want to make a little note so that you remember the arm, external arm rotation etude, I might call it. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Something that I won't get to specifically today, but I want to just mention that we looked at our spine. Also, of course, we have muscles, and the muscles and the spine really work together. And maybe some other time I'll be able to do a little bit more detailed explanation of what's going on. But what I want to say for right now is that along the spine, there are very deep muscles. And this, of course, is my version of screen sharing. I know I could do that. I have it on my computer, but this is the tailbone and the sacrum. And these deeper muscles are going all along the spine, you see. And then these deeper muscles are up at the neck, part of the neck, very close to the spine, all crisscrossing for range of movement. Oh wait, I have it upside down. Isn't that embarrassing? Okay, so here's our tailbone. That looks like a tailbone. Here are our muscles. These are ribs coming up the spine, all the way up the neck. This is the bottom of your skull. And these are the more intricate neck muscles up in here. Yeah, and these right over here are the crisscrossing muscles between all the vertebrae. So those are very deep and they're stable. You can't feel them as much. They don't have as much flexibility. That's what we're calling into use when we're thinking about the front of our spines and upright and all of this. And then multiple layers, but I'll show you the one of the outermost layers is the latissimus. Here again is the tailbone, and it attaches way up onto the thoracic spine, and on each vertebra, and it fans out across your ribs, and it attaches onto the inside of your humerus. That's your arm bone. So if you think, hey, when I'm bringing my arms up inside of this barrel, I have this big cape that's coming along with my arms. And then you're also thinking, your front of your spine and all that. You're going to be calling in the deeper muscles and these outer muscles so that you're distributing the work of this etude into your whole coordination, you see. And then one other outer set that we're all familiar with, but it kind of continues the latissimus, is the trapezius. And so that's in the middle of the back. and it's going up. Here's your shoulder blade, and it goes up and up and up and fans out on top, across the shoulder, and then all the way up, attaches to the skull. So between the trapezius and the latissimus, you've got some power. So when you're doing your gardening, when you're sitting zazen, when you're using your arms in any way, this is what you can start thinking about. Like, oh, wow, I've got a cape here, you know. And, you know, it really needs to sense that inside deeper muscle strength in order for it to feel like it's in play. The movement muscles are in play, but they'll only actually be as easy as they can be if they feel the inner stability. So that it all kind of goes together. For now, I would like you to get your yoga mat, and we're just going to lie down for about 5 minutes, and I'll guide you through a way to sense yourself on your mat. And I'm just offering that as a possibility in any part of your day. All right. If you're continuing to sit, that's fine. So just think the same, just add it to however you are doing this. So just sense the support from the floor. And sense what is in contact with the floor. And really let your effort be different now, because you have more ground for yourself when you're lying down. Sometimes we carry effort from one activity to another without really paying attention or knowing that we don't need that right now. And so to be in the moment and honest in this moment, we want to respond to how we are now. And now is with a lot of ground underneath us. So just maybe do your own version of a quick little scan and see if there's something that you can let go. It could be in the back of your neck, maybe in your ribs. Maybe your ribs are still holding you off the ground. There's often some tension in the knees that could be let go. And sense your shape. What has more contact on the ground than something else? The back of your head, for instance, is rounded toward the floor, so that's going to have a little more pressure. Maybe your upper between your shoulders has a little more, and your sacrum and your buttocks. Just sense the shape. And the calves might have a little more in the backs of the heels. And then sense the shapes that are kind of lifting off the floor. It's kind of the reverse shape. Maybe right behind the ankle, Achilles tendon. Maybe a little bit behind your knees or lower back. Maybe in your wrists, there might be a little bit that's off the floor. There's not a really right or wrong, we're just noticing. And behind you, in the back of your neck, would be curving away from the floor. And now here we're going to sense our breath. Notice whether you can allow your ribs to swing out on the sides and maybe press a little bit more in the back, as well as the typical rising in your chest and abdomen. You can sense a more fully shaped breath. And one of the breaths, really let the exhale out as far as you can do without pushing it out, but give it a little bit more time than maybe you're used to. And then when you get to the end of that breath, just relax your abdomen, relax everything, and I think you'll find that the air will come in on its own for the inhale. And just experiment with that for another couple breaths. And then when you get to the next exhale, on the exhale, I want you to roll to one side, doesn't matter which. And then you're going to just let yourself just stay there for a moment, thinking of the length of your spine. Another breath, and on the next exhale, you're going to press one hand or the other or both into bringing you to sitting. Thinking again of your long spine, widened back, a little bit more deeper breath. And then find yourself sitting again and see what kind of ground you have in sitting, as opposed to standing, as opposed to lying down. It's different. Yeah. Thinking of your sit bones and then your front of your spine all the way up. See if you can't remember how far up that top joint is. And just give a little nod at the very top joint. Yes, nice. Great. And find your breath here. Just one more breath. We'll look for width, depth. Great. Okay. So I wanted to just read a couple definitions that I looked up this morning. which was, the one was patience. And the definition for patience, the first one that I read was the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. And then Merriam-Webster's definition added the word habit to that list, the capacity to accept, she says, the habit or fact of being patient. So habit to me is a habit is existing or not existing based on practice. So I also looked up practice, and that is a repeated, there are several different definitions, but the one that applies to us today is repeated exercise in a performance of an activity or skill so as to gain or maintain proficiency in it. So when we start thinking of these things and we're able to include ourselves again and again, it's not like something you check off a list. It's just whenever you sense yourself. And this is also obviously zazen practice as well. When you sense yourself and your responses to your the present moment, then you are going to be practicing the habit to accept or tolerate any delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. So obviously that's a big sentence, and two of them, practicing and establishing that habit of patience. It's a tall order, but it's accessible because it's just moment by moment. It's not like for the rest of our lives, for every single moment, we have to perfect and be, not ever find ourselves, but it's the practice of our intentions that I wanted to point out in both zazen and this idea of adding our kinesthetic sense to our zazen practice, which means to our life, any moment, at any moment. The one thing I wanted to touch on a little bit is this tricky two-dimensional Zoom world that we find ourselves in today, and I'm sure for many of you in other situations too. As you're sitting there right now, see if you can't become aware of yourself looking at the screen, the space between you and the screen, and the space behind you that is also the room that you're in, that your computer is in, the space behind the computer screen. And the sense of having to look at a small place. Right now, I'm looking at the little white dot at the top of my screen rather than looking at each individual square, because I've been told, thank you, Anne, very good. I've been told that if you're looking at the white dot on the top of your screen, that will be actually, the person that's viewing you will see that you're looking at them. if you're looking at them, for instance, I'm looking at Anne, then my eyes are going to be looking down. Is that the way you see it? Okay. So as you're looking at the white dot, that's kind of bringing a narrowness to, I mean, it's requiring you to look in a smaller place, but that doesn't mean that you can't include the room and your sit bones and your feet on the ground and the front of your spine and all the way up to the top of your spine, your back, the space between you and the computer, space behind the computer. You can sense that your peripheral vision is your friend here. Can you sense, like, if you let that in, that you have just a wider sense of yourself as you're looking at this small white dot? A lot of times we forget that we can remain lively and open and tall and wide because we've narrowed down, you know, into what we're concentrating on, especially if we're actually working on a document. Oh my gosh, you know, or we're looking up something online, or so anytime you notice that in yourself, see if you can't allow your fingers to lengthen, allow your wrists to come back to your elbow come back to your socket here, and then your breath comes in, and then bring yourself back into your whole environment as you're relating to your computer screen. So this will be very helpful. Let's just do one more little thing, and then I'll stop talking and see if there's any questions. Let's do that arm etude one more time. And when we come back from bringing our elbows down, I want you to place your fingers on your keyboard of your computer and see if you can't let that openness that you get from the arm being up and out and open, that when you bring your arms in, you're going to add that on top rather than collapse into it. So here we go with our thumbs externally rotating, leading us into the big barrel arch, feet on the ground, our big back muscles, latissimus and trapezius in here, powerhouse, our cape. Yes. And then we're going to drape our arms back down, still externally rotating. Up at the top, remember to allow your armpit to be lengthened from your hip. And our elbows are coming in, staying nice and open, easy top joint. We're going to bring our hands in, and then magically we can turn our palms over. Because of those two bones in our arms, we can flip them over and not have everything come into that. So great. And if you're actually touching your computer, you can let the tactile touch and pressure on your fingertips relate to your back. Just feel the pressure on your thighs or wherever your fingertips are touching. Let that go back into your wrists, back into your elbows, back into your shoulders, and back into your back for a conversation. Okay, yeah. I hope some of that makes sense and gives you something to play with today and onward. Is there anyone that has a comment or question?